Historic win by Ole Miss. Just moments ago, Ole Miss drops Georgia 28-10. You guys were there watching it. So were hundreds of recruits, and that's what we are here to break down today. The only post-game show on YouTube that's talking recruiting, and we got it here. We're going to get into it. I got Steve Wiltfong. He's about to come in, the best insider in the business. We're going to talk Georgia. We're going to talk this LSU recruiting weekend. It's huge. We're going to go out to Texas. We're going to make a couple other stops, but today, wow, what a game by Ole Miss. Getting over the hump, beating Georgia at home. I was on the Ole Miss message board, OM Spirit, before the game, and I'll be honest, there wasn't a lot of optimism coming into this one that they could slow down Georgia in the trenches. They did just that. Wow, we're going to talk all about it. All right, let's bring in the great Steve Wiltfong. Steve, Lane Kiffin getting a little emotional talking about Jackson Dart's performance after that one. If you're a recruit, what are you watching in this game? I mean, this had to be an amazing atmosphere.
Well, you're talking about an Ole Miss team that won 11 games for the first time in program history, played in the Peach Bowl, poured a lot into this season to make a college football playoff run. These are the wins you have to be playing in those big ball games. At the end of the year, 28-10. I never felt like it was even that close, Josh. Ole Miss in complete control, nearly 400 yards of total offense, held Georgia to just 59 rushing yards, 245 total yards. Carson Beck did not throw a touchdown, just threw a pick. The crowd was in a frenzy. They rushed the field not once, but twice. They get a huge win. Ole Miss has the nation's number 18 recruiting class right now per the On3 industry. They hosted several top targets today. These are the kind of games that get you ahead in recruitments in 2026 and 2027. Going to be very memorable moments in their recruiting process. Just a huge day for Lane Kiffin and company. And I know we're about to break it all down.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right about the 26 and 27 comments. I mean, games like these get etched into your memory. Some of these recruits will go on to take several more visits, but when they come back to Ole Miss, they will remember the feeling of the goalpost getting torn down, the field being rushed twice by the students. They will remember tonight, and that's for sure. Now, there's also some 2025 targets on campus, and that's what we're going to get into. We got AK Deer on here. He was expected in. He did not make it. At least we have not confirmed. Oh, no, you did confirm that he did not make it, but He was expected in. But let's focus on the guys that were there. Duce Knight, committed to Auburn, flipped from Notre Dame. He shows up on campus at Ole Miss. And Steve, you always told me to watch out for Ole Miss with Duce Knight. And that's when he was committed to Notre Dame, but he committed to Auburn. He flipped that commitment. I was surprised to see him back at Ole Miss this weekend. What do you think of Duce Knight showing up in Oxford?
Well, got a text at 1:45 Central from a source on campus that said Duce Knight is in Oxford. They didn't want anything leaking out until he arrived on campus, but that tells me that this thing has been brewing for a while right now. And look, similar to Michigan making a late push at Bryce Underwood, Ole Miss has never gone away on Duce Knight, whether it was his commitment to Notre Dame, now his commitment to Auburn. Duce Knight visited Auburn for every home game in September. He visits Ole Miss for this ball game and gets a different result than most of the times he was on the plains. Just an outstanding atmosphere. Now, he was up front with Auburn, told Auburn he was going to be on campus. I still think Ole Miss is moving uphill right now in the Duce Knight sweepstakes, but we know that they're going to keep pushing. I think this is the only quarterback that they're targeting in 2025 right now. If they don't land him, they'll go portal. I think they like their quarterback room, the young guys that they have in there, Austin Simmons and company. But certainly Duce Knight is a guy that they continue to have dialogue with, got him on campus, and we'll see how the infrastructure and resources fare in the sweepstakes for Duce Knight leading up to the early signing period.
So there you go. Producer
Look at Trey, man,
knocked out the AK Deer edit, so you can see he did not make it in, although that would have been exciting had he made it in. Let's talk a little bit more about Duce Knight. One of the reasons why he flipped to Auburn was because there's playing time there. I mean, And like we've said all season long, Duce Knight has seen loss after loss after loss at Auburn. But one of the things that could keep him involved with the program is the fact that they don't really have a quarterback. So did this Ole Miss game seal the deal for Duce Knight to Auburn? Because Austin Simmons came in, he went 5 for 6 against Georgia off the bench, looked amazing, led a touchdown drive when they really needed it, and he has all the tools. Physically, he's there. He's a redshirt freshman. Do you think Duce Knight could actually look at this and be like, oh, well, Auburn has a little bit more of an appetizing way onto the field than Ole Miss does?
Well, he could look at it and say, I go to a place like Ole Miss and bet on myself to thrive in this offense if I ultimately earn the starting quarterback responsibilities and in-state recruit, what that would mean for him and his brand to stay in state and play for the Rebels. I think one of the reasons why he's excited about Auburn is that chance to come in there and compete on day one and maybe win the starting job as a true freshman. Auburn's recruited 2 straight. They're in the process of recruiting a 2nd straight top 10 class. I think that also excites him. He sees a lot of playmakers, the way Auburn's recruited the receiver position, an opportunity to be successful around some explosive players. But certainly anytime Lane Kiffin is coached an offense, that ball's picking up first downs, big plays, and against a terrific Georgia defense today, I think they showed that they can go toe-to-toe with anybody and got a huge win. And Duce Knight got a taste of what it would be like to play his college football in state. Certainly, he'd have to there might be a little more competition perhaps at Ole Miss than Auburn to play early. But month ago in this recruitment, I think they're still battling uphill for Duce Knight, but him coming on campus is not nothing to me.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and it's going to be a storyline that we're going to have to figure out. I mean, just the fact that he was on campus, we know that it's not nothing. It's not nothing. It's something. We just got to figure out what exactly it means. And I'm sure you and Chad and everybody at On3 will be talking to Duce Knight in the coming days. Now, let's talk about Caleb Cunningham, the 5-star wide receiver committed to Alabama, committed to the Tide in midsummer. And Steve, you always told me, and there's a picture of Duce Knight and Caleb Cunningham from Zach Berry at the game. Steve, you always told me to watch out for Caleb Cunningham and Ole Miss, because no matter who he committed to in the midsummer, you told me Ole Miss would be there in the end. What do you think of this visit and the fact that he was there at the last home game as well?
Well, when he visited for Ole Miss's opener, we said that he would be back for the Oklahoma game and the Georgia game. So all these visits were planned. These weren't just pop-up, spur-of-the-moment trips back to Oxford. He still has his official visit in play for Ole Miss if he wants to use it. But teaming up with Chad Simmons, our colleague on the Caleb Cunningham beat, talking to Caleb myself after his last visit to Ole Miss for the Oklahoma game, I think it's trending towards Ole Miss. I think he's ultimately going to be in the Rebels class. It's up to Alabama to change the momentum. I know he's committed to the Crimson Tide, but I just really like the way that this is shaping up right now for the Ole Miss Rebels as we get closer to the early signing period.
Yeah. In, one game, we don't ever, when we talk recruiting visits, we don't ever think that like one visit could do it. But this was a big visit. This was a big visit for Caleb Cunningham.
Look, an opportunity for him to play early, in his opinion. He talked about what his brand was like in the state. When he was there for the Oklahoma game, kids were coming up to him. He was signing autographs. He was taking pictures. He talked about Coach Kiffin and the way he gets his playmakers the ball. I think it's and then look, man, you follow the visits, the old rule, right? And I know he's been to Alabama. We'll see if he gets to the Iron Bowl or the Mercer game. I think they play Mercer next for their next home game. And I just think that this is one that's going to go Ole Miss's way right now, unless something changes over the next few weeks. It gives me confidence that he's ultimately going to stick with Alabama.
All right. Who else? We were going to get Zach Berry in here with OM Spirit, but Steve, the connection in Oxford.
We should try anyway. I just want to see the background.
We couldn't get the video to work. That was the problem. So we'll keep trying here. We'll see if we can get Zach Berry on. But JUCO defensive lineman Xavier Hardy also showed up for this one. Xavier Hardy, one of the top JUCO players in the country, plays that premier position on the defensive line. But the problem is he's committed to Mississippi State. What are you hearing on Xavier Hardy?
Well, there's a lot of SEC programs trying to change that narrative, and Ole Miss is one of them. So we'll see ultimately where the chips fall. But he is one of the most coveted prospects out there, regardless of class, regardless of are you high school or are you JUCO or are you in the portal right now. That's a big time guy to have on campus. So is edge rusher Jared Smith. Josh, that was a name that he arrived on campus today. Also committed to Auburn, the number 4 edge rusher in the land per the On3 industry. He's been to just about every Auburn home game. South Carolina is a program that has already had him on campus once this year for the LSU game. He's going to be back in Columbia for the Mizzou game. But there was a time where I'll just say, look, I thought early on in his recruitment, South Carolina led. Mm-hmm. Auburn was able to change that momentum at the end of the summer and ultimately get them in the fold. We have South Carolina battling back, but there was a moment in that summer time where Ole Miss was right there as one of the front runners for Jared Smith as well. A lot of that has to do with his relationship with potential position coach Randall Joyner, but him popping up at Ole Miss isn't as random as people would think, because I would always have put Ole Miss in the top 3 with Auburn and South Carolina. We'll see what he thought of this experience coming out. Not much cell phone service when fans are rushing the field multiple times. So have not connected with Jared Smith just yet about his visit, but Ole Miss, as we talk about flip programs, I would say they're more than a dark horse, because he had genuine interest in them most of his process.
Yeah. So Lane Kiffin gets the win over Georgia. Let's kind of tie a bow on this Ole Miss win. It also kind of coincides with flip season, Steve. Is Lane Kiffin going to take this momentum and do what he does? I mean, I know Ole Miss high school recruiting has been in worse spots hitting flip season. They're actually recruiting, like you said, really well right now at the high school level. They're not necessarily depending on a bunch of flips to make the class, but I'm looking at a couple on the board, and it seems like Lane Kiffin could do just that down the stretch. And I don't think people were counting on Ole Miss to be this force in recruiting down the stretch based on how their season began.
Well, Ole Miss had a top 5 transfer portal class last year for On3. I think that's a place where they'll want to make a lot of hay again following this season, particularly on defense. A lot of senior transfers making an impact for Ole Miss across the board. So you see a guy like Suntarine Perkins make the big play on defense to seal the game. He's a sophomore that they can build around. But there is a lot of transfers on this defense, and for them to play at this caliber again next year, although I thought they recruited one of the best defensive line classes in the country, there is an infusion of young talent coming into this program. The transfer portal, the way they're closing this season, the way those guys are playing, I think we'll see them recruit another top 5 transfer portal class.
Yeah, and we're gonna have Zach Berry of OM Spirit on tomorrow. OM Spirit's the Ole Miss website on the On3 network, and it is buzzing right now. You guys head over to the message board. Fans are celebrating. Zach Berry also reporting that Ole Miss, Steve, has been in contact with Texas wide receiver transfer Jonte Cook. So, like you said, they are already getting on that transfer portal class. So we'll see what happens there. We'll talk to Zach Berry tomorrow on Sunday's Inside Scoop. But Ole Miss fans, wow, historic win tonight for the Rebels. Talk to Steve and I. Comment section below. How do you feel about having Duce Knight on campus to witness this one? Caleb Cunningham was on campus. Jared Smith, Cameron Sparks, Shakai Mills-Knight. You got to love Ole Miss recruiting right now. It's going to be red hot heading into these last couple weeks before signing day. Talk to us. Comment section below. Let us know who you think Ole Miss is going to sign. Let us know. All right. Let's head to the Bayou, Steve. LSU and Alabama. The game's kicking off right about now, but we got to talk recruiting, because this is probably the epicenter of high school recruiting this Saturday. You got Bryce Underwood, you got DJ Pickett, you got Naeem Alford, you got Jakeem Stewart, you got Anquan Fagans. This is a loaded visit list. It comes at the right time. Bryce Underwood, obviously talking a lot with Michigan. We've been covering that on this channel. If you haven't watched any of those videos, there's plenty of them. Go get caught up. But Steve, before we get to Decory and Moore being there, you broke some big news. We'll get to that in a second. But Bryce Underwood on campus, How big is this for the Tigers?
And we can put a line through Naeem Alford's name. He was no longer expected, had the news on Friday. He was going to go to the Tulane game, watch his brother play. Tulane's chasing a conference championship. And that was going to be a long shot anyway. His relationship with Corey Raymond is genuine. He wanted to show him some respect. Come check out LSU, check out a huge night game in prime time. But his dad told me on Friday they were all probably going to go as a family to the Tulane game and watch the Green Wave. Bryce Underwood being on campus is obviously huge, particularly at this point in his process. His talks with Michigan have intensified late in the process. His correspondence with head coach Doran Moore and the staff, the family's correspondence with Michigan. But I still think Michigan's going uphill in this recruitment of Bryce Underwood. LSU's the program that he envisioned himself at before he was even recruited. The process takes off for him. He builds a great relationship with Joe Sloan and that coaching staff. Watched Jaden Daniels win the Heisman Trophy last year. The receivers that LSU pumps out year in and year out, the offense, just the vibe around campus. Him and his family love the food, the culture, the diversity at LSU, the fans being in Death Valley for a game. He's loved all of that. He's got a great relationship with his future teammates. They have a group text going on. So him getting back to campus for such an exciting weekend. I've talked to some folks that are in Baton Rouge today. Everybody is in a great mood. I mean, like, there is so much energy at LSU tonight for this pivotal showdown with Alabama, and any recruit on campus is going to feel it. And obviously Bryce Underwood is the number one player in the country, the 5-star quarterback committed to LSU, perhaps the next great one under center to follow the recent Joe Burrow and Jaden Daniels, looking to lead his high school football team, Belleville, to a third state title in 4 years, get back to the state title for the fourth time. That's what makes him special to me. Belleville never won a state championship before he got there. He's led them to 2, trying to win a third one, and he's ready for that stage at LSU. And so I think that they're the one. Michigan's still working, still alive, still has a pulse. But I like where LSU is.
Yeah, I like where LSU is. I mean, this visit, Joe Sloan and the boys, they're not newcomers to recruiting. They knew that Michigan especially would make another run at Bryce Underwood. I think it's extremely important for them to have gotten him on campus for this visit. I know that they knew that, hey, the LSU-Alabama game will be towards the end of the season. We got to get Bryce on campus then. They probably didn't know that the rumors would be swirling the way that they are, but boy, does this come at a great time. You got
rumors,
DJ.
They're facts.
What's that?
They're not rumors. That's fact. I mean,
yeah.
Them,
Yeah, no, it's absolutely facts. And DJ Pickett's recruitment, I feel like we were talking a lot about Miami after week 1 because they beat Florida and he was in attendance for that one. Then he showed up again the next week when Miami returned home.
That's what really turned it up a notch, I think, was him going quickly back to Miami.
Yeah.
And then knowing historically, like, we've seen Mario Cristobal pull off a Justin Scott flip from Ohio State the year before. Just some of the big recruiting wins he's had. Miami this season, they're having the resources, how important of a recruit he is. But talking to DJ Pickett's dad earlier this week, he says his son's been locked in since he committed. They're trying to get – he didn't even make it to the Miami-Florida State game, so that would have been another opportunity to get some FaceTime.
Yeah, I mean, we thought after that time when he made kind of those back-to-back visits to see Miami in state, I mean, you and I were like, hey, he could be on campus 3, 4, 5 times. And if he makes it on campus 3, 4, 5 times, it's going to be hard for LSU to have that kind of access to him. And lo and behold, he hasn't shown up again at Miami over and over and over the way that we thought maybe he could. And I've also kind of been listening closely to, you and his father, DJ Pickett's father, stay in contact somewhat regularly, almost on a week-to-week basis, just to check in. And his dad's message to you is literally the same every week. Like, yeah, he's locked in. He's locked in. He's 100% locked in.
Exactly right. But earlier it was, Mario Cristobal. It was the lead recruiter after he committed and has turned it up even more. And then you compound it with those wins in the upcoming visits. You're like, oh man, Miami is more than laying in the weeds here. Maybe he goes to one more Miami game, but I get the sense that he is locked in with LSU right now. One of the biggest reasons why he's locked in with LSU outside of the comfort level, the relationship with Corey Raymond, is the SEC. He wants to play against the best competition week in and week out, the best receivers, wants to be tested on that stage because that's what prepares you and pulls the best out of you. And they don't think they can get that anywhere else. And so LSU, that's another carrot in the I'm struggling with my words. That's
You
another
put a feather
notch
in that cap,
belt.
Steve, not a
Another
carrot.
feather in the cap, notch in the belt for LSU here for DJ Pickett. And he's going to come back for the Oklahoma game. That's the plan, which is a few days before he would put pen to paper.
Right.
And so I think he sticks with LSU based on everything I'm hearing right now. Something would really have to change in that recruitment as well.
Yeah, and knowing Mario Cristobal, we'll keep an eye on DJ Pickett no matter what, because you can never count Miami out down the stretch, especially with a 5-star in-state at a position of need, blah, 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 and all that. But DJ Pickett right now looks locked into LSU. Let's move on and talk about a couple more really intriguing prospects. Steve, you broke some huge news today about midday that number 1 wide receiver Doran Moore, who was formerly committed to LSU but is since committed to Oregon, is going to be back in Baton Rouge. Now, this is Doran Moore's first visit to Baton Rouge all season, and he comes for a good game. Steve, were you expecting this and just kind of broke the news on Saturday morning, or was this a surprise to you as well?
Well, I talked to his mom earlier in the week, and she said that they were going to be going out to LSU. He just needed to check the box with the Oregon coaching staff and let them know that he was going to visit. Look, LSU's dynamic, exciting, true freshman running back, Caden Durham, him and Doran Moore were high school teammates. Caden's been wanting to get him to a game. He wants to go watch Caden play in person. No better game to come back to LSU for than LSU Alabama. Obviously, Doran Moore is a former LSU commit. That was his first love. Jamar Chase, again, the receiver tradition at the program, the offenses, the style of play. He's had a lot of love for LSU, but his mom was adamant that this was just a visit to go watch Caden play in person, that he's locked in with Oregon. He's not talking to Texas. He's not talking to any other programs, and this is the only other visit. But anytime you get on campus somewhere, you get a chance to get around Cortez Hankton, Joe Sloan, Brian Kelly, this atmosphere. I don't know if there's a better atmosphere in college football than Death Valley at night for LSU, Alabama. That goes up another notch. So he's going to be digesting that atmosphere. He's going to be around Bryce Underwood and all those LSU commits, around the coaching staff.
That he used to be a part of that group too.
Exactly right.
That's what I'm saying, Steve. Like, you sit around a barbershop long enough, you're bound to get a haircut. So does Doran Moore sit around and feel like, because he was in that group of number 1s. Remember when they had all those number 1s committed? Him, Pickett. Pickett was after him, but
it's all running together, Josh. It's November.
The number 1 running back in America,
Berry,
number 1 QB in America, and the number 1 wide receiver in America. We're all committed. So you wonder, just sitting around with my old buddies, if they can talk him back into it. So that'll be, I know his mom probably said exactly what the Oregon staff wants his mom to say, but we're going to have to look into this one a little bit further in the week.
No question. We'll see how it goes this weekend. Jakeem Stewart's big visit at LSU this weekend that I really
got. Is this the official visit?
He's on his official visit.
Okay.
And he's been to LSU numerous times. 5-star defensive lineman, number 1 player in the state, reclassifies from 2026 to 2025. He's in town. Look, he's done the film studies with Coach Baker, Coach Bo Davis, and that staff. He's camped with Coach Bo Davis, so he's gotten hands-on work with LSU's defensive line coach. He's been to games. He's been to big games in Death Valley. Getting back around all those guys and having those good feelings and those good conversations are exciting. And then being part of the game day atmosphere this morning, seeing Coach Saban and Pat McAfee and all those guys and the energy from the very early mornings all the way up to kickoff. Those are all drops in the bucket for the visit. But I think the big thing for Jakeem Stewart on this visit to LSU this weekend is going to be a reminder why it's most beneficial for Louisiana's best to stay in state. It's there, you won't find a better place for your brand, the resources, the way people will rally behind you. I expect him to rub elbows with some very powerful, exciting people around the LSU school, football program, state, just all kinds of people involved in this recruitment for Jakeem Stewart to stay a Tiger. And already talking to people about the weekend, I like the way this is trending for LSU. I know that I've been, talking to people around Jakeem, talking to other sources about his recruitment after visits and such. There's a lot of genuine interest in Oregon right now and Ohio State. USC rounding out the top 4. They've had some momentum too. But I just think as we get closer to December 4th, I am back around to thinking that it's going to be hard for these teams to beat LSU when all's said and done. I think they're going to pour a lot into this thing. And even though we can sit here and say Oregon's in great position, he's going back to Oregon on the 23rd, and he's going back to Ohio State over Thanksgiving weekend. And I'm not discounting those programs, but the more people I talk to, the people I talked to this weekend already about this visit, I like LSU. I'm on the record. I did a best guess article on Thursday, and I didn't have LSU there. But if I was writing it right now, it would say LSU. And when you read the Wiltfong whip around on Monday on 3, it's going to talk about why I like the way this is trending for LSU. So it's up to those other programs to really make it. They're going to have to really put on a show for him to, in my opinion, leave the state.
Yeah, this isn't just a recruit
state, mind you, but look at that picture. Yeah, that picture was sent to me today. Look at those guys right there.
Hey, Steve, this isn't just a recruit reaction show. This is a Steve Wiltfong reaction show as well. And we got your live reaction to Jakeem Stewart's visit to LSU. But I know what you mean. I mean, like, you got to assume that LSU's the hometown team. They have a little advantage there. So if those other programs are going to land Jakeem Stewart, not only do they have to be even with LSU, they have to be well beyond LSU. And as we get closer and closer to signing day, things get realer and realer. And is Jakeem Stewart really going to leave the state? Well,
it's like a Luther Burden deal, right? Like Luther Burden almost went to Georgia. He went to Mizzou.
Right.
We'll see what happens. Like Jakeem Stewart is willing to leave the state. All right. So LSU has to win this recruitment too now. Like I think they've been trailing. It's not, but I think that it's going to start to set up for them to win it out. Anyone that says that this kid was always going to LSU is wrong. And other than the sense that like if he picks them, they can say that they were right in the end. But like he has loved the USC. He has loved Oregon. He has loved Ohio State and still has a lot of love for them. But I just think that it's starting to set up well for LSU. That's all I'm saying.
We are 3 minutes before kickoff as we talk right now, and it is absolutely buzzing in Death Valley right now. I couldn't imagine being Jakeem Stewart down on the field for that one.
There. He's not with us. Hayes Fawcett is in Death Valley, another 5-star on campus with the Tigers today. Took his girlfriend.
Good for Hayes. Good for Hayes. What an atmosphere to be in. Speaking of atmospheres, there's going to be a lot of great 2026 prospects on campus, just as we talked about Ole Miss laying the groundwork with the huge win. This
Lamar
type
Brown's
of environment.
So we got him listed there twice. We even got him playing wide out.
Lamar, take out one of the Lamar Browns and put in Tristan Keys. He's the number 3 ranked wide receiver in the industry, number 2 on 3. But Tristan Keys is there. Wayne Bradford is there, the number 1 safety, Lamar Brown. How important is it to have these guys in Death Valley tonight to watch this Alabama LSU game?
Yeah, well, for Blaine Bradford, I just think that he will ultimately end up at LSU. His brother Jacob's one of the commits in LSU's class that ranks number 3 nationally right now. And he loves the style of defense, the way they want to use him as a boundary safety, just the comfort level close to home team, playing with his brother. I think all that's exciting. Places like Notre Dame are definitely attractive to him as well. But I think LSU's clearly the one to beat for Blaine Bradford. My RPM and on 3 reflects that. I also have an on 3 RPM in favor of LSU for Lamar Brown, number 8 overall prospect in the country, two-way lineman that's got a lot of talent, that's spent a lot of time at LSU. He recently said Texas A&M was his leader. Nobody has switched their pick to Texas A&M yet. I do think that the Aggies are making it interesting, but back at LSU tonight, so we'll see how that continues to go. Tristan Keys, Tennessee, Alabama, Texas A&M, some of the others. This is his second visit to LSU, and he was there, I think, for the win over UCLA, Josh. He said the ball is in the air a lot. He sees the way the receivers are developed there. He sees himself doing big things in Baton Rouge. LSU is one of the front runners for Tristan Keys, who's a top 10 prospect per on 3. One other underclassman, or not underclassman, but one other junior I want to mention, Josh, is offensive tackle Bryson Martinez. He's from in-state. He's a top 100 recruit. Hard to figure he'll go anywhere else. One of the staples of any Brian Kelly recruiting class, when you go back to since his time at Cincinnati, Notre Dame, LSU already, he recruits great offensive. His staffs recruit great offensive line classes.
Mm-hmm.
And so to see the way they've been recruiting that position, and then to think that like a Bryson Martinez would go elsewhere, it's hard for me to wrap my brain around that.
All right, LSU fans, talk to us. How are you guys feeling about Doran Moore, the number 1 wide receiver? You guys are familiar with Doran Moore, I think. You got to know him a little bit. So talk to us. Comment section below. Huge weekend. Big time visitors on campus. Let us know how we're feeling about recruiting. Comment section below. All right, Steve, let's head to Austin, where there was a noon kickoff between the Longhorns and the Florida Gators, and Texas destroyed Florida 49-17. Obviously, DJ Lagway did not play. He was a game-time decision, but they held him out. Probably a good decision because Quinn Ewers went crazy. He threw for 5 touchdowns. Running back Jarrett Gibson, he got his licks in. Remember, Jarrett Gibson was a recruit from Gainesville, Florida, that went to Texas. He goes for 100 yards and a touchdown against his former hometown team. Texas rolls 49-17. Steve, we got to talk about a couple recruits that were on campus, but no surprise here that Texas rolls.
Big win for the Longhorns. To look, seasons ebb and flow. You play well, you're playing average, you got to grind through some ball games.
Mm-hmm.
This is the time to get hot again. I thought Florida had been playing with a lot of courage and toughness. Texas kind of hit the throttle on them, got a big win, and maybe this is them starting to rear up for a big playoff push here for Texas. I'm pulling up this Texas class, Josh, as I talk to you in 2025. They're at number 5 nationally right now. So finished number 6 last year. I think they were in the top 5 the year before that at on 3. They got some meat on the bone still out there this cycle. You got 5-star athlete Michael Terry III. He's still trending towards Texas.
I can't believe he hasn't announced a decision yet. We've been talking about Michael Terry for months now, but I guess at this point, just take it the distance, right?
Well, we'll see. I mean, you still got some conversation with Nebraska. They got they're making a resurgence on the trail this cycle, but I like the way that's trending for Texas. They have a corner on campus this weekend, Grayson Littleton, who decommitted from Clemson less than 2 weeks ago, then immediately took an official visit to Notre Dame, to Michigan. There is some good Michigan buzz, but no prediction from me yet because this Texas visit was lingering, and I think it's close. So we'll see how he's feeling coming out of this Texas visit, because the interest in the Longhorns is very real, and no question he's having a fabulous time this weekend. Linebacker still a position that Texas is kind of targeting this cycle. Nathaniel Owusu Boateng is going to visit 4-star from IMG Academy. They're still alive for Madden Faramo. And then they got Kellen Wiley on campus this weekend.
What do you make of that?
I
think Wiley, because I've kind of felt like Kellen Wiley is trending heavily to Miami, has been for some time.
Yeah.
How do you feel? I mean, is this like a, hey, let's throw a little Hail Mary here, get him on the end, get him on campus one time at the end of the year, see what happens? Or is there something going on between Kellen Wiley and Miami?
Well, I don't know if
Or
Hail
Texas, I
Mary's
mean.
I don't know if Hail Mary's the right terminology. Like, I don't know if Miami has it on like the 2-yard line here. I do think they got to make a move on the Hurricanes. Miami identified him early, prioritized him before he was an on 300 recruit. So they've done good things, but he's on campus at Texas. Texas has got some recruiting wins this cycle where they were not the leader at various points. Certainly not Jonah Williams. They kind of rallied at the end of the summer for the jewel of the class, Myron Charles. At one point was committed to Florida State. That also goes for Dalen McCutcheon. They flipped Josiah Sharma from Oregon.
No, you're right. Don't sleep on Texas when it comes to guys that we might think that they don't have a shot at. But, with Kellen Wiley, he's just an in-state guy. Miami got on him, like you said, before he was even ranked by many of the services. He made several visits to Miami. But, hey, coming out to a game like
wins
this.
In the Sunshine State this cycle. I mean, Jamie French is another one. They went down into Florida and got a recruiting win there. So we'll know more coming out of the weekend. Those guys are on official visits right now, and they watched Texas get an early morning win, and now they get to spend the rest of the day around a program in good spirits. I need to tweet this, but how about Lane Kiffin? He was bitching about them not getting a night game for Georgia. They win at 3. They win a 3:30 kick. He's got the whole rest of his night ahead of him.
He can hang with the recruits and Duce Knight and Caleb Cunningham.
Play that game at noon. I got to get that tweet out at some point here because I want to. I like to poke the bear. All the diehard fans, they love the night games. Play them all at noon for me, man. Let's get our day moved on. I love big noon kickoff. I'm a fan. We play that.
That's because you're a Big Ten guy at heart. You love that big noon kickoff.
If I wasn't chasing, like, I never make it through the Sunday night NFL game. If I wasn't doing this for work, I don't know if I'd make it through this Alabama LSU game. I'd be tired, man. Play it earlier.
No, I feel you. All right. So Jamie French on campus, Kalik Lockett on campus, Jonah Williams on campus. Texas fans, talk to us. Comment section below. How are the Longhorns going to finish the recruiting cycle? Let us know. Comment section below. All right, Steve, we save our favorite for last. We got Indiana, Michigan, the Hoosiers. Well, you tell us about the game, Steve. The Hoosiers win again. They don't cover, but they win again.
They're 10-0 for the first time in program history.
Wow.
They have a bye week before Ohio State. So you're giving Kurt, smoke him if you got him, Signetti, an extra week to prepare for the Ohio State Buckeyes. I've already talked to some of the recruits that were on campus today. They're obviously buzzing about Indiana. They're going to close this recruiting class strong. Tyrone Burris was there for his third game of the fall. He's from Indianapolis, Warren Central. He's committed to Louisville, but he's been to 3 IU games now. I like where Indiana stands. That's where my on-3 RPM is. On 300 defensive back, Byron Baldwin. That's been a back-and-forth recruitment with Colorado. He was at one point committed to the Hoosiers. Got an offer from Colorado this fall, went to the Baylor game. Colorado beats Baylor on a Hail Mary. Then they have like a concert in the locker room afterwards. He opportunity to potentially be coached by Deion Sanders and company, very enticing. He decommits from Indiana, heavy trend to Colorado, but Coach Ola Adams and company, they don't waver. They stay in there and recruit Byron Baldwin. Byron Baldwin's Baltimore St. Francis team plays a game against Greenwood Center Grove, which is a South Side Indianapolis suburb, the week of the Nebraska game. So Byron Baldwin is now in the Indianapolis area. The Hoosiers send some coaches to his game. They win big against the Indiana powerhouse. Then he goes to the Indiana-Nebraska game, has a great time. Indiana rallies in this recruitment. They are the favorite to land Byron Baldwin as his recruitment stands right now. And then when you look at the visitor list and you see some of the highly offered Midwest prospects that are on campus, guys like defensive lineman King Liggins from the Chicagoland, they're having a great visit. Indiana is building equity with some of the region's best juniors, guys that there's no way Indiana would be in the mix for. Last year, the Indiana was a purely like developmental program. Even in the Midwest, we are uncovering rocks because we are not going to beat Iowa. We're not going to beat Illinois. We're not going to beat Wisconsin for recruits. They can beat all those programs for recruits right now on the trail. And where this season's going to really help Indiana is in the portal. They're going to have to go into the portal after the year, and they're going to be able to show recruits how quickly they took a roster and turned them into a title contender, because that's what they are. They're 10-0. They have Purdue in the bucket game. They're guaranteed to be 11-1, Josh. They're in the playoff. They're in the playoff, right? Do we put them
Absolutely.
in 10?
Without question.
The Hoosiers are in the college football playoff right now, unless they lose like 55-0 to Ohio State in 2 weeks, and that ain't happening. So the Hoosiers are in. We got them. Kurt, smoke them if you got them. Signetti and the Hoosiers are going to be one of the 12 teams in the college football playoff. They're going to close strong on the recruiting trail. We'll see what happens at the quarterback position with five-star quarterback Julian Lewis, who they've been recruiting. USC commit, was not on campus this weekend. Long planned for him to be at this game, but was not there. But they signed two really talented quarterbacks last cycle. They obviously hit big at the position out of the portal this year. Curt Cignetti's last three quarterbacks have been the Conference Offensive Player of the Year. That's going to hold up, I would imagine, for Curtis Rourke this year at Indiana. So that'll be 4 straight quarterbacks Conference Player of the Year. You got Taven Jackson coming back next year. You got some young arms. So Indiana football is healthy as ever. First ever 10-win season in program history. They got the Buckeyes in 2 weeks. Recruit reaction is coming in on On3 site. So a lot to be buzzing still regarding the Hoosiers. You see those towels waving in the fourth quarter. They've got a big defensive stand, and Michigan's playing well right now. Like, I know Michigan's 5-5, but they played their best game last week against Oregon, showed some signs of life at the quarterback position. They came in here and played this Indiana team that's been rolling really hard, won the third quarter, fought back, had some chances in the fourth quarter, but just wasn't enough. And Indiana got a win against a Michigan team that, even though they've lost their last 2 ball games, I actually think they're playing pretty well. So another feather in the cap for the Hoosiers. And Josh, they didn't rush the field. They've been here before this year, 10-0. They beat Washington. They beat Nebraska. They've now beaten Michigan at home. The fans did not rush the field, to my knowledge, in Bloomington today, because they're so used to these wins now.
Yeah, we're watching the fans mature right there before our eyes. Are you surprised the quarterback stats that you gave me under Cignetti, the success that Indiana's having this season? Are you surprised that Juju Lewis isn't giving the Hoosiers the time of day?
Well, I just don't know. I mean, he is giving them the time of day. He's talking to them. He's visited them twice. He's got good relationships with their staff. Is he giving some other schools more time? If that's what you're trying to say, I think, he's been to USC twice.
I mean, they're the biggest story, the biggest surprise, maybe outside of Colorado, the biggest turnaround. And they have an opportunity for Juju to step in, and he's not. I mean, Indiana's trying to get him on campus, but they can't.
Sure. No, they're recruiting him, and it'd be a great fit for him, a chance for him to go play for a staff that certainly gets the best out of their quarterbacks. But his other 2 schools are certainly known for doing that as well. I mean, Colorado's beating Texas Tech on the road right now. They're playing hot. Shedeur Sanders is going to be a finalist for all the major quarterback awards this year. And then obviously we don't need to run down what Lincoln Riley has done at the quarterback.
But I'm just a little surprised that he wouldn't show up for a game. I'm just surprised.
Again, I don't know why. I don't ultimately know why that visit was canceled. I was just told on Friday that, he wasn't coming. So take his name off the list. He's not coming.
Time to move on.
I don't know where Indiana. Look, when you're recruiting those caliber of players, you got to have some resources. And I don't know. There's a lot of excitement around the Indiana program, but I don't know how much excitement has been built up yet.
Yeah, I can tell that. I think if those things lined up, I think he'd.
And I'm not saying that's what's going to be the end all be all in this recruitment either. I'm just saying, like, he is giving Indiana the time of day. They're in his final 3. He's committed to USC. He's continuing to work through his process. He did not visit this weekend. Does that mean that I think Indiana's out? No. I mean, he's already been there twice, so it's not like he has to come a third time to decide to come to Indiana. He knows who they are. The visits don't matter. These visits are wine, and you're coming to get wined and dined. These guys, they don't need these visits.
I think they need it. I think they do. I think they need to get him on campus to have a shot. I do.
I don't think he's going to go to. I mean, like I
Right.
don't have Indiana in the lead
Because he hasn't visited.
Like, I'm just saying that I'm not eliminating them because he didn't come.
All right. Well, we have all week to argue about this. We'll keep at it.
So
I'm not eliminated
him. You got him down to 2.
All right, Indiana fans, talk to us. Comment section below. How good is this team? Let us know. Comment section below. All right, Steve, let's hit a little Ohio State. They blanked Purdue 45-0, and they did it in front of some really important recruits. Most notably, 2025 running back Anthony Rogers, who's committed to Alabama, and Ohio State has been just kind of quietly chipping away at this commitment of Anthony Rogers. What are you hearing about his visit to Ohio State this weekend?
Yeah, so Ohio State, they've obviously been in this recruitment for a while. He's been up to campus before. Carlos Loughlin's been leading the efforts in recruiting Anthony Turbo Rogers. I think he sees an exciting offense, a chance, a place where he can be versatile. He's playing receiver as a senior. Georgia is another program that's been in the mix for Anthony Rogers as well. Long-time commit to Bama. They just offered another running back, so we'll see what happens here with Anthony Rogers. But I'm not ready to put him in Ohio State's class just yet, but I think that there's obviously genuine interest.
Yeah. All right. Wasn't a huge visit weekend for Ohio State being a noon game. It's a quick turnaround for elite recruits to make it in after their high school games on Friday nights, but there were some really important 2026 prospects on campus. Not Zion Ely, though. He ended up making it to Penn State, not Ohio State. But talk about some of the other studs that were on campus in Columbus this weekend.
Well, you had Derek Cooper, #1 running back per the On3 industry, and Savion Hyder, the #1 running back per On3. So a big weekend for Carlos Loughlin, Ryan Day, and the Buckeyes in that running back room. I like where Miami stands for Derek Cooper right now. He's made a couple visits to Coral Gables. So we'll see what kind of ground Ohio State can make. He did text and say that he had a fabulous time, or tagged me in a tweet about his visit to Ohio State, And Savion Hyder, Michigan's a program that I think's been well positioned for him, but Ohio State's always been one of his front runners. So good for them to get him back on campus.
Yeah, and quick note here on Derek Cooper. I agree with you. The hometown Miami Hurricanes probably in the lead right now for the #1 On3's #1 running back. But Derek Cooper was also teammates with Jeremiah Smith at in high school. So it was kind of interesting that he's up there this weekend as Jeremiah Smith breaks the record for, I think it was freshman receptions. He was teammates with Cooper at Chaminade Madonna Prep last year down in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. So kind of interesting. Good to get a jump on him. Zion Ely, he's our #1 overall player. I know he wasn't there. I know he made it to Penn State. I think it was just due to some just basic travel. He'll be back at Ohio State. Zion Ely did an interview here on this channel saying that he's in no rush. Steve, right now, is it Oregon still out front? How are you reading Zion Ely's recruitment here?
I like the Ducks for Zion Ely right now. That's who everybody's chasing.
Yep. All right. And a lot can change with him. He told me he's going to take some.
So it's easy to keep up when he's putting it out there.
Yeah. But that was a couple weeks ago. I mean, a couple weeks ago in recruiting.
Weeks are like years in recruiting. Yeah.
So I was just checking in. All right.
He's still in the stage of his recruitment where weeks are weeks.
Yeah. And talking to him, and you guys can go find that on the channel, but talking to him, he was almost a little bit like taken aback by the fact that his recruitment is just blowing up. And he said that he thought he was going to be ready to maybe make a decision after his junior year, but at this point he's going to take some time. So smart decision by him. Slow it all down. Take a look. He's at Penn State this weekend. He'll be back at Ohio State some other time. But for now, Buckeye fans, how are we feeling after a 45-0 win over Purdue?
Ohio State and the Hoosiers, it's coming. Who's going to win that game? Tell us. Are you scared about the Hoosiers in 2 weeks coming to the shoe? That's what we really want to know. In the comments, what's the score of the Ohio State-Indiana game going to be? Do the Buckeyes have their hands full, or is it the end of the road for Kurt Smoke 'em if you got him Snignetti in this magical run?
Let us know. Comment section below. All right, Steve, we got one more big one. It's Notre Dame, Florida State. They have just now kicked off. We want to talk recruiting, though. So the outcome of this game, we think Notre Dame's going to win by multiple touchdowns, but we'll just have to wait and see. Big time names on campus, led by linebacker Madden Faramo, Derek Meadows is on campus coming off that Michigan visit. Another flip target, big old defensive lineman Jalen Wiggins, who's from Tallahassee, committed to the Gators, but he's here to watch Notre Dame FSU, Nathaniel Owusu-Boateng and Nolan James. What stands out to you, Steve?
Well, I think you start with Madden Faremo, the hard-hitting second-level defender from California. It's his second game visit to Notre Dame this year after attending the win over Louisville. My on-3 RPM is on the Irish. I'm certainly keeping a keen eye on USC. You have Texas and Washington rounding out the top 4, but I still like Notre Dame here. So to get them back for this weekend, another great experience to try and continue to build equity in that recruitment is huge, as that one is going to go till the end. Derek Meadows, like Madden Faremo, those are two guys that Marcus Freeman and his staff had near the top of their list the entire cycle, regardless of position. They lost round 1, Derek Meadows, to LSU, but they're now back alive again in the later rounds. Can they get a flip? We'll see coming out of this weekend. Jalen Wiggins, on 300 defensive lineman, committed to Florida. There was some optimism that Notre Dame was moving up the list here. That was before Florida announced that Billy Napier would be indeed coming back next year with a lot of investment from the university. But Jalen Wiggins is a fit at Notre Dame, a high academic kid. So we'll see what this weekend looks like. I like where Michigan stands with Nathaniel Owusu-Boateng. You also got Colorado and Texas in play. Nolan James is the one. I'm going to put in an on-3 RPM for him for the Irish, I believe, by the end of the night. Just waiting to see how this visit goes and this game goes. But talk to him coming into the visit. And I know he's excited about the tradition and the track record. And Notre Dame is one of the best running back coaches in the country in Dylan McCullough. And certainly that's the strength of Notre Dame's offense right now. A high academic kid. He's having a great senior year, committed to Boston College, but I think it's trending towards the Irish.
Okay. Now, when it comes to Derek Meadows, how much of his recruitment is tied to Bryce Underwood? Like, if Bryce Underwood sticks to LSU, does that help with Derek Meadows if he flips? Are they tied? Are they tied at all? Because it seems like they are.
I think Bryce Underwood's biggest impact with Derek Meadows would be as if he flipped to Michigan. He was at Michigan last weekend. So, I mean, he's doing his own thing too. I mean, look, he was highly recruited, highly regarded. He's been to Notre Dame many times, so giving them another look today.
Yeah. Is Alabama still in that one? Because when it was down to the wire. Okay, so it's mainly
I
back.
haven't heard. Alabama's got their 2 receivers committed, Latia Brooks and Caleb Cunningham. They got their hands full for Caleb Cunningham, but I would suspect that if Alabama went to their plan C or D, they would have a chance to make a move with somebody, even if it's this late in the process.
All right. Well, Notre Dame has a huge opportunity this weekend. We're going to talk more about it on the Inside Scoop on Sunday. We'll definitely be talking about all this on Monday on the Wiltfong Whip Around. We're going to have a ton of intel coming out of a huge visit weekend. You guys talk to us in the comment section below, Notre Dame fans. How are we feeling about this weekend? Also, these flip targets on campus, who is the most important? Is it Derek Meadows? Is it Jalen Wiggins? Let us know. Comment section below. Boom. All right, Steve, another exciting show on the Recruit Reaction on the On3 Network. If you guys watched it, if you're still watching, make sure you hit that subscribe button because we're going to be back at it with huge intel all week. I'm looking forward to it. Steve, another great weekend here in the On3 Recruits channel.
Yep. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you on the next show.